I'm afraid to say that we'll start straight with politics, okay, and then we'll move to business in economics.
I thought my subject is how to become a Jew or how to feel like a Jew.
We will get to that. Being a Jew. Not how to become a Jew, but being a Jew.
Being a Jew.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in the last, I don't know, 12 months, I've been reading a lot about you in the Israeli press, because I read only Hebrew and English. And you are telling us a very exciting story about the potential, the economic potential of what's happening in of the Palestinian Authority. Could you share with us before we start your vision, and why do you see such a huge potential?
Thank you for inviting me, first of all, and it's great to be here. I, as a Palestinian, always believed that there is going to be one day a Palestinian state. And today I believe that the Palestinian state is in the making. It's a process that started a while ago, and now it's accelerating. So in order to have a strong Palestinian state, we have to have a strong economy. And I strongly believe that economy is also happening, and it's easier to deal with the economic issues than to deal with the political issues, although the two are quite related. So each one of us on our own, the Palestinian people who reside in the West Bank and Gaza, are putting a brick in building this state. I am launching a number of projects. The one that you've heard about in the news quite a lot is building the city of Rawabi. Yesterday we had a great, wonderful signature of an agreement with an international French company, Publicis, to come in and invest in one of our companies. A year ago we formed and launched the first private equity fund. Few years ago, we created the first company that does agricultural export, similar to Israeli companies that are doing agricultural export. So there's a lot is happening. And of course, not only by us. I can talk about my examples, but there's a lot happening by the Palestinian private sector. And with a little push, with a little breakthrough in the process, I don't want to say a breakthrough in achieving peace. I wish, but I know that's a little bit tougher. You could see a very healthy growth in the Palestinian economy.
Can you tell us about the talent pool in the Palestinian Authority? What kind of talent do you see there? What is the potential there?
Well, Palestinians culturally value education quite a lot. I think we overvalue education, as a matter of fact. Today we have 230,000 students in universities, in 17 universities. If you compare that to Israel, which the population is greater than the Palestinian population, I think the number is probably 160, 170, 180,000 in less number of universities. So the biggest resources we have is the human resources. We, like Israel, we share the same land, so our natural resources is very limited. It's stone. Recently there was gas discoveries, but again, it's not sufficient to have, it's not like oil or gold or iron or something like that. And we have a small land, even for agriculture, it's very tough. So human resources is the most important factor for the Palestinian people, and it will play the biggest role in the economic boom, and it will play the biggest adversary in poor political progress. It's also a ticking bomb.
And can you see in the foreseeable future the Palestinian Authority becoming a knowledge economy?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're heading in that direction, as a matter of fact. We have a very healthy system. We have laws and regulations that are very private sector friendly and focus more on services. Most of our growth economy is in the service area. We're starting to see IT, we're starting to see film and media, a lot of services. We have to see that. The occupation forces us also to look at services rather than manufacturing. Unfortunately, I would say, because there should be more manufacturing, of course, and more agriculture, but we are forced to go to more service, and having the human resources is a good match.
Okay, so to finish that part of the interview, do you think we can have major, significant economic process in the Palestinian Authority without a major breakthrough in the peace process, or without even having a peace process, because currently we don't have a process?
Yes and no. Yes, to a certain extent. There are millions of Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza, and we are people, and we're going to have to live, and we have been living. So we have our needs, and we have our creativities, and we have our own market. And within the political limitations, we have been working within that market. Very tough, of course. For exports, for example, it's extremely tough for us. Okay? Obviously, if there's a breakthrough, we will be in seventh heaven. Only playing catch-up for the last so many years of being behind because of the political problem will be sufficient to create a boom. Look at the last 3-4 years. We had internal security for the first time, stable internal security. Nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with any neighboring country. It is, we had a president and a prime minister that focused on security. That alone was a main catalyst for economic growth over the last 3 years at an average of 8%. It only slowed down this year to about 4 or 5%, I'm not really sure, but it's still significant growth. And the reason it slowed down is because the political process has not moved forward, and obviously if it does not move forward, it will continue to slow. So imagine if the political process moves positive, then the economy will pick up. If there is a breakthrough,
Okay, so you mentioned the last years. If you look at the last 25 years, the first Intifada, the Oslo Accord, the second Intifada, look at all this period. Tell me about when were you the least optimistic, when are you the most optimistic, and where are you now?
Obviously, the most optimistic, there were different periods. Number one, right after the signing the Oslo Agreement, I happened to be in Washington, D.C. I was living in Washington, D.C. in September when the agreement was signed at the White House. So this was a great optimism. It was time to come back home and build a nation.
So you were not one of the skeptics at that time?
No, absolutely not. No, I was very optimistic, and I'm optimistic by nature, so I'm not the indicative person. If I'm not optimistic, I would not be investing in such an environment. It's a tough environment. But the most optimistic years for me were mid-2000, during the Camp David, and even later on, even after the breakout of the Intifada, during the what's called the Clinton Notes or Clinton Initiative. This was optimistic times that the Palestinians and the Israelis were engaging under the auspices of the Americans with a serious, very serious initiative. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. Well, then we come to the worst times, okay? The worst times, well, let me go back to continue with the good times. The second good time was 2005. There was a big boom in the economy. I'm talking economically and politically. It was the change of presidency, and Abu Mazen became the president, and there was an upbeat in the air. And then another optimism was in 2009 and 2010, where the numbers speak for themselves with the economy growing rapidly. Now, the negative times, the first negative time after the political process was the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin. This was a major, major setback, which was quickly followed by the bombings of early 1996 and the tight closure of the West Bank and Gaza, ironically during the time where President Peres was the prime minister, actually. Then the worst time we've ever had since the political process was 2001, 2002, and 2003. 2002, we were literally dodging bullets in our homes. And I happened to live a few hundred meters from the presidential compound by coincidence. And there were tanks all over the place. It was a war zone. So this was definitely the worst time. Another bad time in recent history is 2007 with the fight between Fatah and Hamas, which led to the separation of the West Bank government and the Gaza government.
Okay. You are a global player. You do business around the Arab world. So please give us your interpretation, your perspective. What's really happening in Egypt right now?
Well, that's a tough one. Well, let's talk about the Arab Spring as a whole. Yeah. Because this is an interesting phenomenon, actually, obviously. And I don't think anyone knows the outcome of it. And I believe it's a process that started last year and early last year, and it will continue for the next 10 years. I don't think we will see the outcome of this process in a year or 2 or 3 or 4. And I predict that it will change the map of the Middle East. And it will offer wonderful opportunities, and it will have some major setbacks like what's happening in Syria today, the massacres that are going on left and right. It could change other countries that we have not seen the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring forced changes in other countries. Already they're changing, maybe very slowly, but we will see, I think, rapid changes in the near future. It's extremely hard to predict what will happen in Egypt, but I'm not optimistic on the short run. I think things will get worse, not better, over the next couple of years before they start getting better. It was needed, it is definitely spontaneous, and I think it's a clear answer to dictatorship and a clear answer to the West that supported dictatorship. Most important, it's a clear opportunity for Israel to position itself in the Middle East for good. It is always an outsider in the Middle East. The changes that are happening is an opportunity to blend into these changes and fit in to the new Middle East over the next 10 years.
And how do we do that?
I think we have a golden opportunity because all these countries that are facing issues right now, revolutions, springs, etc., will take them a long time to settle because nobody understands the different powers. The only place where things are very clear today is in Palestine, at least in the West Bank, and possibly in Gaza as well. And if there is a clear leadership on both sides that can seize the moment and create peace today and create the model Palestinian state, the model state that could be a model for the whole world, not just for the region. It's really hard to create a state from a bureaucracy like in Egypt, but it's very easy to create a state from hardly any bureaucracy like Palestine. And so if Israel seizes the moment with the Palestinians and create the state today, it could be the model democracy for the Middle East that the Arab Spring leaders would follow to create their own states.
So what you're saying that it's all relative, and now the Palestinian Authority has become from the most complicated place in the world or most complicated place in the Middle East to a less complicated place when you look at the surrounding countries, that we're saying basically.
That's very true, yes.
Okay. Now, tell us about, you're optimistic by nature as an entrepreneur. Tell me about the questions that you are being asked by your Western partners about investing in this area today. You're optimistic, you say we have a golden opportunity, but then again, in Western eyes, I see the whole Middle East might go up in flames.
We are very forward with the partners and potential partners that invest in Palestine. There is not a single investor, foreign investor, that invested in Palestine, whether Western or Arab. You know, the Qataris are the biggest investors in one of my companies. We're very clear about the risks. Most of these people are investing in Palestine from their heart. Whether they are Palestinians, obvious reasons, it's their home, whether they're Arabs and they support their fellow Arab Palestinians, or internationals, particularly Jews, who believe that a strong Palestinian state is good for Palestine and good for Israel.
Like the CEO of Publicis that just bought an Arab advertising agency, Maurice Levy.
to have the chairman of Publicis, a company with 54,000 employees, the chairman himself and CEO and the COO to come to Ramallah to sign the agreement themselves to purchase a chunk of a company of 23 employees, I think says it all.
Okay, Mr. Bashar Masri, thank you very much.
Thank you.